The Hounds of Love book tag. This tag was created by Aaron of Aaron Read a Book, and I was tagged by Nadine of Widely Reading. This tag was inspired by the album Hounds of Love by Kate Bush, which I think is turning 40 years old this year. What I like about this tag is how random it is. The prompts are based on songs and are not really what you would expect for a book tag. If you've watched my other book tag videos, you know that I like to answer prompts using books from my collection. And that's because I see these tags as something similar to the party game Bring Me. In case you've not played this before, what happens is that the MC will say something like, "Bring me a stick of gum." And the first person to bring the MC a stick of gum gets a prize. And sometimes you just do have to get lucky. If you normally have gum on your person, but don't happen to have it that particular day, you don't get the credit, Similarly, there are times when I've read a book that is perfect as an answer to a prompt, but don't happen to have it with me on my shelves, and then I don't give it as an answer. Or if I do give it as the answer, I find a creative way to use a book I have anyway. And that was a long-winded introduction, just to say that these are the 12 books that I am bringing to Nadine and Aaron, thanks to their prompts. The first prompt is a book that was mentioned by a film or TV character. I choose Pride and Prejudice, which is mentioned in the movie You've Got Mail. It's Meg Ryan's character's favorite book, and Tom Hanks's character reads it because he wants to understand her better. While You've Got Mail is not my favorite rom-com, I do find it romantic when people read the books that their significant other loves. It does seem to be a part of falling in love with a bookworm. The second prompt is a book featuring a four-legged friend. Warhorse by Michael Morpurgo. Because of course, I'm going to mention my Year of the Horse Reading Challenge again. In this challenge, I observe the Year of the Fire Horse by reading books which feature horses as characters or as significant drivers of the plot. The last horse book I read was Warhorse, and I quite liked it. I have a review on it if you're interested in my thoughts. The third prompt is a book with the sky on the cover. This was the hardest prompt for me. I almost thought I would not be able to complete this scavenger hunt. But finally, I found A Ring of Endless Light by Madeleine. As you can see, it is about 90% sky. Well, yes, there are a girl and a dolphin in the foreground, but look at that sky. This is not a typical cover. I think other covers focus on the swimming aspect and show more of the water, but this one goes with the idea of light coming from the sky. And that's how it saved my tag. The fourth prompt is a book with a parent-child relationship. And if you were expecting me to pick something from my YA and MG shelves, well, I have a surprise for you, because I picked something from my grown-up shelves. The Joyla Club by Amy Tan. This has not one, not two, not three, but 4 parent-child relationships. And in these relationships, there is not just the usual age barrier between mother and daughter, but also a cultural barrier and sometimes a language barrier. And I think this adds a level of poignancy to the fact that sometimes daughters have a hard time understanding their mothers, and mothers have a hard time making themselves understood. To the point that it sometimes feels that two people who were once so close that one of them had to give birth and physically expel the other from her body now have to virtually cross an entire ocean in order to find connection again. The fifth prompt is a book in which psychoanalysis or psychology is important. The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, and I'm really lucky to still have this copy from my uni days. If I had not kept this book for sentimental reasons, I might not have been able to fulfill this prompt. This is not one of my favorites. I remember it's about a disturbed young woman who attempts suicide and really does need therapy. This is one of the rare books from uni that I have not reread yet. I think it is due a second look. I just don't know when I'm going to get to it. The sixth prompt is a book that sent you to sleep or is about sheep. And because I no longer have the book which I used to read literally to put myself to sleep, Veritatis Splendor, I'll show you this one instead. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. And it does have a literal sheep in it, but you're going to have to read the book to know if the sheep is real or if it's an android. The seventh prompt is a book that takes place underwater. And do I have a book for you? Deep Wizardry by Diane Duane. This is quite an experimental book. The two children are wizards who transform into whales so that they can do magic underwater, but the depth to which they must dive as whales is actually so far beneath the surface that there is no light and they cannot see. They have to communicate through sonar. And that means the reader also cannot see, and Duane has to describe everything as how it would look if we could only see it with the sound bouncing off it. It's a little unnerving at first, but like the characters, we get used to it. So it is highly unusual and it demands quite a bit from the reader, but I think it's rewarding in the end. And if you liked the first book in her Wizard series, I think you'll like this too. The eighth prompt, a book featuring witches or witch hunts. And I was surprised to have only one. I thought I would have more. The only book I have with witches is Jennifer, Hecate, Macbeth, William McKinley, and me, Elizabeth. This is about Elizabeth, who becomes friends with Jennifer, who claims to be a real witch. Is she a real witch? Can one be a real witch in elementary school? I actually don't remember because this is something that's also due for a reread. I'll see if I can squeeze it in for October or November spooky season this year. The ninth prompt is a nightmarish book. Oh, here's your nightmare. Full Tilt by Neal Shusterman. See those eyes? This is about a bizarre demonic carnival that traps you in it and you have to escape somehow. I read this when I was a high school teacher and Inferno was on the syllabus, and I couldn't believe what a good companion novel it was to Dante's trek through hell. Neal Shusterman is a creative and original writer, and although I also don't remember much about Full Tilt and need to reread it soon, I recommend this hands down. I recommend anything by Neal Shusterman, even the stuff I haven't read yet. The 10th prompt is a hopeful book. Purgatorio by Dante is a great book for this prompt because its hope is not just normal hope, the cardinal virtue, but supernatural hope, which is the confident expectation of reaching eternal joy and having the means to secure it at our disposal. Well, the souls in purgatory definitely have the means of securing it at their disposal. You could say the one good thing about purgatory is that you know you are headed to heaven. It's just a pretty long detour. When I was reading Purgatorio, it felt like a manual for the earthly spiritual life, just masked in allegorical form. The 11th prompt is a book that is hell on earth. No, we will not slide back into Inferno, which is under the earth. I present instead Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, which of the canonical dystopias I find the most hellish. I find this scarier than 1984 because even the integrity of your own body, your own biology, is controlled by the state. If you've read this, you know that there's a character called the Savage, John Savage, who is kind of a play on the idea of the noble savage. He was born and grew up outside of this highly controlled, highly medicated world. And when he's brought in, he has a pretty terrible time adjusting. One thing I think he would say is the cliche that hell is other people. The 12th prompt is a book about being rescued or about fog, or a book that makes you happy to be alive. I'm going with The Rescue. Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim by Robert C. O'Brien. This is all about a family of mice that need to be rescued and are rescued by some rats. This was also a challenging prompt for me, which surprised me again. Rescue is such a universal and classic trope that you'd think I'd have more. And I did have some others, but not as many as I would have guessed I had. And the reason seems to be that I have more books in which people rescue themselves and don't need to be rescued. And we might say that's kind of the same thing. It's still the idea of rescue. There's peril, and just because you're the one pulling yourself out of the pit, it doesn't mean that you weren't rescued. Okay, but I wanted there to be a rescuer and a rescued party, and Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim definitely delivers. But I will say that the reason this is such a beloved classic is that Mrs. Frisbee does not simply get passively rescued. She also has a hand in her own rescue and the rescue of her family. And I think that's what current readers really like when we see that trope done again. We want the rescued party to also be an active participant as much as possible. So those were the books I was lucky to have on me and which I was able to bring to the front for this round of Book Tag Bring Me. Because I was tagged, I am now going to tag some others. And these are the channels I'm tagging: Must Read More and The Great Literary Rabbit Hole. I'm tagging Must Read More because he has a very eclectic taste in books, and it'll be interesting to see the mix that he brings out for these prompts. And I'm tagging The Great Literary Rabbit Hole because Candy, like, her book collection is the gift that keeps on giving. I never know what she's going to pull out of that rabbit hole when I visit her channel. And if this is something you want to do as well, please feel free. Tag me so that I can see what you've brought and comment. And also tag Aaron so he can see how far his tag has reached.